want to talk to you guys today kind of about unlocking value in operations. And three of us are going to kind of share some updates, some history, some foundational information about our learnings and about what's going on with Ocado and also at NRI and at SVT Robotics. So my purpose here, I'm going to introduce Ocado to you guys today. The reason is that Six River Systems is the organization that I was with for a period of about 5 years. We were acquired by Ocado in July, and I want to share with you guys what is Ocado, what is that mission, who are we, what's the future, and why did Ocado have the interest in acquiring Six River Systems. Obviously, Ryan is going to share.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan from NRI. We're a 3PL focused predominantly in apparel, footwear, and other consumer goods fulfillment. We're a user of 6RS systems, the Chuck Robotics, as well as SVT. So here to provide a little bit of true customer insight into how that's helped our operation.
And then Brian.
Brian Chuckle, SVT Robotics. SVT is a software company working on integration, so we help solve that interoperability problem with integration between host systems, ERPs, WMs into any automation. So we do that through what we call softbot connectors. It's pre-built solutions that also give visibility and other things, and so that's something that we've worked with 6RS and Ocado, and we actually partner with NRI to bring that solution to bear within their network.
So we're going to step right into this, and I'll give you the background on Ocado. Since we were acquired in July, I thought it's super important for people to understand the relevance and the why and how long they've been around. Ocado was actually founded in 2000, so 23 years ago, with the one primary focus of being the world's leading online grocery retailer. And what does that mean? It means that the founders of Ocado had this vision of online buying and fulfillment of grocery items way back 23 years ago, before we went through, some of the learnings, the growings, the COVID periods of time, to actually provide fulfillment to consumers that allowed you to order online and actually get those goods delivered to your door. So not buy online, pick up in store, but buy online and it be delivered straight to where you want the product to be met at your door, and kind of remove all those touch points that you and I deal with when we go to the store. In 2010, they obviously developed their own system, an end-to-end solution that allowed what I just shared with you to be provided, where you as a consumer could create that order online, all that activity that would normally happen with putting that order together and getting it to your door, all of that solution is provided by Ocado. And the solutions became available through those years between 2000 to 2017. And in 2022 is when Ocado said, why are we not allowing this solution to be commercially available to users outside of grocery? Hence, why they had the interest in not only having their high-end grid solution to do robotic picking, but also their interest in 6RS and to acquire autonomous mobile robots in 2023. So let me quickly show you a video of this high-grid Ocado system. So you can see the robots actually picking on a grid. Each one of those cells that you see has product that is in that tunnel, if you will. And the robots will actually retrieve product based upon the customer's order to basically start building up that order that the consumer basically wanted at their home. And those robots will operate on that grid, basically pick and retrieve the items that are needed to fulfill an order. That tote will be presented at a picking station to basically take out those items that the consumer wanted and build a full order that ultimately gets delivered onto a truck, and that truck going to the consumer's home. The arm you see right now is actually not just the robot taking the tote out of that grid, but the arm itself pulling product. So removing another person or another touch with robotics and actually creating the order with a robotic arm. It actually makes the workflow even more streamlined, reduces complexity, and actually reduces the need for, again, an employee to perform that picking. So that's our high-end solution. The other system that I'm going to share with you is the Six River Systems, which was acquired in 2023. The map shows you a nice view of kind of Ocado's breadth 38 locations worldwide. We have over 3,000 in-house technologists that come in the format of those that develop our software and those that actually run our software for those grocery entities that you see. Remember that Ocado was only available by us running the system prior to that 2022 definition of saying we were going to go out and be commercially available outside of grocery. We've spent over $2 billion of investment that we're putting into the product and over the next 5 years to continue to provide this to our current customers as well as those new customers. And it is a publicly traded company. So let's step into a couple of questions that I have for kind of the people that are in the audience. What I want to know is, as you stepped into this session and you're interested in automation, I'm curious, as operators, what challenges are you specifically facing? And there is an individual that's got a mic that's going to bring the mic around because I'd like to hear from you. What are the things you're trying to resolve in your businesses or in your operations that will make you more effective?
Anybody?
Anybody? No challenges you guys are facing? Nothing you're trying to improve?
You came to this show for something.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
We use 3PL, but I think one of the major challenges I often heard from them is just the scalability, to handle the volumes up and downs, and with the, that's one of the most biggest challenge.
Okay. Anybody else?
We're going to remember these and address them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, we're a UK brand, so it's international shipping. We have a lot of US customers and just trying to serve them in the same way that we do for our home market as well.
Thank you. Grocery is complex, as we know. You have ambient, you have cold chain required goods, you have and how do you manage all that? It's just kind of a challenge that I've seen a lot in grocery.
Okay, so that's challenges you're facing. We're going to address all these guys. This is why I want this input, is as we dive into this, I want to make sure that we're answering questions that you are concerned about as you're thinking about your own systems and your solutions, right, and what you're doing today. Second, why haven't you switched to automation? Has anybody in the room already switched to automation? Or if you haven't, why haven't you? She's right here. What? She said she'd already switched.
But she has switched.
She switched.
Yes.
So you've switched.
Yeah, we are using pick by light and conveyor belt and automatic packaging machines.
Okay, so you're doing different levels of automation, right? Not just doing manual. And are you considering automation in other parts of the operation as well?
Well, next step is to how are we going to do the picking phase? Pick by light is perfect for the products we are selling.
Yeah.
Nicotine pouches, easy, small, come in 5 or 10 packs. It's easy to pick.
Yeah.
But the next step is, okay, can we have a robot also doing the picking and faster than the humans?
Faster than a human.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Why haven't you switched to automation? Don't know? Or haven't gotten there yet? Haven't thought about it? All right, well, let's move forward and maybe this will help. What we wanted to share with you is some of the things that you would have told us. We continue to hear the same trends, okay? And I wanted to share with you, these are the points that our customers they were prospects, they were considering automation, and these were the obstacles that they were trying to overcome, okay? Whether it was high labor cost, whether it was their volumes were surging, the business was spiky, right? The onboarding and training. I mean, let's be real, finding labor is easy now, right? And when I do find labor, how skilled are they,
Yeah.
right? The long runs in pick, right? You talked about that you've addressed automation in some other areas of the business, but you're still trying to impact that pick phase. You're trying to basically change the need of the human element, right, at the pick phase. Just the manual manipulation of orders, right? How do I manage all the work that needs to be done in a day, okay? The shift in the business. I mean, when COVID happened, we saw this huge shift, right? From our traditional channels to an e-fulfillment channel, trying to move online. And there were some businesses that could not make that shift because they weren't prepared to, right? So how do I get flexibility? I heard the scalability a while ago. How do I get flexibility, right? And how do I manage a workforce that I no longer know how to manage, right? The needs or desires of this new workforce are not what they were traditionally. So we've got all of those challenges that are listed there. And then what are the reasons for delay, right? The other reason why I hear a lot of people not making the move to automation is because of all the reasons for delay. It's either the high cost of capital that's still out there. There's not multiple ways that I can get into robotics. There's a big impact to my workflow. My IT staff is already overburdened. I'm going through other system upgrades, whether it be a WMS, an ERP, an OMS. And then I just don't know what I don't know. I don't have access to the data that I need to get to in order to make this change. And what I wanted you to know is you're not alone in that journey. These are common trends that Brian and I hear all the time and that NRI faced when they were going through their project. So I wanted you to meet Chuck briefly because I talked to you about Ocado. I showed you the high end. Chuck is our purpose-built robot built to be scalable, configurable in all of these different fashions and formats. Chuck can manage singles picking, discrete picking, batching, garment on hanger. I can do packaging straight to a box in an operation and get you away from picking to tote and repackaging everything. We have ladders on Chuck that allow you to go up to higher levels so that you can get more cube out of every aisle. It was built to be scalable, configurable, and flexible. It's built to be a workhorse. It was built industrial for these environments, and it's been built to handle 200 pounds of payload and really address those orders that you can basically manage all on one robot and not have to segregate the work and create those multiple waves to get the business out. Autonomous robots provide benefit in one of three ways, guys. One, it's reducing the pick-to-pick travel, increasing density because of the algorithms that the software runs to group orders tighter together. Two, it's managing pick face time. And it's doing that because I'm giving that operator all the clues they need to be effective, even as a new employee. Three, by its name, it autonomously travels. So an operator that picks can stay in a pick zone and pick, and the robot can deliver work to wherever it needs to go next. We basically call Chuck that he could be a sorter because he can deliver to multiple drop-off points, whether that's multiple carriers that you use, if it's multiple value-added services you do in the building, it can basically drop off at multiple locations. That reducing the distance between picks, this kind of gives you a picture. This is a picture-heavy slide, but how we traditionally picked was I sent orders down and we sequenced them and I went through all those aisles to go get them. Chuck is grouping those orders tighter together. All those picks that you see in the green are those same picks in the blue, but I'm having Chuck be much more effective because if I'm going to go down any one of those aisles, I want to group those orders together onto that robot and reduce that travel. And if I've got that long tail, that blue dot that's way out there on the end, if it's more effective for that operator to get on a different robot, Chuck can travel down there autonomously and I can pass my work off to Brian. And that's called dynamic zoning. So we're being efficient, trying to basically reduce the steps that an operator takes and create the efficiency in every single aisle. And I'm going to give the analogy of you going to a grocery store. When you plan your trip going to the grocery store, you're going to go down those aisles fewer times. When you don't, you look like the zigzag stripe from, going back and forth. And I know we've all done it, been in the grocery store for an hour because I didn't plan my trip and I keep going back to aisles to get products that, I need to make dinner that night. Right? So think about that algorithm working in a way that you're not doing that grocery trip. You're being really efficient. That's what the software does. I briefly talked about the reducing the time at the pick face. These are those visual clues I spoke to that show the operator what's the location. It's got an arrow pointing to the side of the aisle it's on. Chuck's also got lights that show me what side it's going to be picking on. I have a visual image of what the product looks like for accuracy. I've got quantity, I've got description, I've got everything that user needs to be highly effective as they're walking up to that next pick with the robot to quickly retrieve the product. And then Chuck is going to tell them where it needs to be put, and it's going to light up the lights on the side of the robot specifically where that product is to be placed. So this allows a brand new user to be effective literally, guys, within day one. You can do 15 minutes of training and they can be picking on Chuck. Alternative benefits. What else is out there to go get? We talked about accuracy. We talked about reduction in training. We talked about reduction in retention of employees, and I think Ryan's going to talk to this when he gets to it. But I'm going to hand this over to Ryan, and so he can start telling you about really the NRI, case study and what their benefits were.
Green button?
Green button.
All right. I probably won't read directly off of this. I want to try to touch on things that are going to be, important to you in the audience. So if you do, feel free to yell out, do so. But, quickly again, we're a predominantly apparel footwear based 3PL. So we operate in both Canada and the US and on both coasts. We've got geographies in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, California, Nevada, and Pennsylvania. So we are growing and scaling 3PL. So for us, any solutions that we're looking at definitely need to be flexible and scalable. We're fairly high growth. We have been operating for about 25 years. So, and we have a homegrown WMS. So we did design and develop our own WMS. We've always been a very technologically driven company, but also tried to build everything ourselves, and eventually realized we probably couldn't continue to do so, and started to look outward at third party to help us improve, really our efficiencies and our growth. We did do some early adoption on the robotics test scenario in Canada a few years ago, and at the time we were, the slide that was, talked about the barriers, we were saying all of those things. We were struggling actually to one. I mean, financial is a big component. Also, technology and even though we're very technologically savvy, the bandwidth and the time to dedicate to another new project is always a challenge. And at first, when we assessed the cost and sort of the ROI on robotics in general, I think we were overly focused strictly on pick improvement. In Canada, we have an extremely highly tenured staff. A lot of people that have been with us for decades, and so pick efficiency, retention, lack of turnover was all extremely strong. With our growth in the U.S. and just rapid growth, and also a lot of hiring, a lot of training throughout COVID times, et cetera. Also a lot of challenges with turnover, finding staff, and what have you. It really thrust into the limelight the value of Chuck. So we started our journey with 6RS, and we implemented Chuck in I think early 2021.
Yep.
In one of our facilities in Chino. So on the left side of the screen there, a few details on that. So predominantly a footwear brand with some apparel and accessories, but very omni-channel. So this is a brand that has been around for quite a few years and has their roots in wholesale. But of course, with the advent of e-commerce and the growth within e-commerce, that really changed the scope of their picks. And it's a combination thereof. So, and then during COVID, of course, and with a huge shift, even more so over to e-commerce, the profile of our work was changing regularly, and so I think what really brought 6RS to the front for us was just that ability to adapt in that. So we are a true omni-channel fulfiller, and we need to be picking both e-commerce and wholesale orders. The physicality of the bots allow us to do that on the same bot. So our combination of being able to, where we used to create e-com waves for picks versus separate from wholesale, we can now have them combined. Also historically, we've done a lot of work to create that perfect pick path, as you sort of drew on the one slide there. But once a pick wave was set, it was set, and now with Chuck, it's fully dynamic, so it's constantly adjusting. So So the efficiencies, even though, like I said, we thought we were doing pretty darn good. I mean, we've seen anywhere from 50 to over 100% improvement in actual pick time efficiencies. But that's looking at it on like a real micro environment. If you go a little more out from there and start looking at I think it was addressed in some of the slides there, but the more human side of it, the reduction in injuries, the lack of fatigue, the fatigue both physical and mental. So the readout screen versus carrying a handheld and having to think about where you're going and picking items. The bot's doing that work for you. So all of our associates have, we don't have a single one that doesn't like them. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that dislikes them. So working with them is definitely a hiring selling point for us when we're looking for staff, and they realize that we're using the technology in the warehouse. I mean, a good majority of them have worked at other warehouses, so they have something to compare against, and they know what pushing carts and trying to read off handhelds and things like that can do, whether it's eye strain or body strain. So it's definitely a huge value on the hiring and retention side as well.
Are you finding that associates, Ryan, when they come to you new, that they've had any introduction to robotics at this point, or is it still not that mainstream?
It's still fresh. There's some for sure, because we've seen it out at this show and other places. I mean, they're starting to get out there. So there's some for sure, but the vast majority no.
Okay.
So it's you see in their faces. I mean, it's kind of like a person getting to drive for the first time and getting handed the keys to a car. Like, I mean, a car is better than walking. It's an upgrade from what they've previously done, and and then the training thing. So back to when, like I say, when we're assessing cost, I think it's really important that you factor in what really is your true cost of hiring, cost of training, cost of retaining, cost of turnover, et cetera, because the training goes almost, it's not zero, of course, but darn near compared to what it used to be.
Yeah.
And again, the workplace happiness, so therefore retention and reduction in turnover and all that. So yeah, it's I think we'll probably actually have I don't know if I can. Hopefully this is okay. Down. I'll switch to the video. This is the Chino facility. I think there's actually.
CFO for Architect.
Yeah, we'll go with sound on this.
Holding company for 4 premium lifestyle brands: Olakai, Rort, Kanan, and Melon. Our business has transformed over the last couple of years, as many have, from a wholesale base to more of a lot of DTC, direct-to-consumer business. We acquired this building about 5 years ago now, and NRI came in as a partner to help us manage the building. We saw that 3PL and distribution wasn't our expertise and really looked to NRI to bring that expertise.
We've actually partnered with NRI for quite some time in our Canada distribution. So it was a natural concept for us to see if we could partner with them a little bit more with US distribution. And we found that their values kind of aligned with Archipelago's values as well. And it was something that they were up for the challenge, for the growth that we were experiencing and kind of coming with us and working with us.
And they were very successful in getting in the building and helping us grow as much as we've grown. At the end of the day, we want people that care about the product and our business and our consumer as much as we do.
We intentionally seek out clients who see the value in good partners. We take the time and the effort to get to know the business of our clients so that we can understand what they may need to become more successful, what we can do together to be better, faster, less cost prohibitive, and keep up with the demands of today's climate.
We're part of that brand story. We're as much involved and responsible for the success as anybody.
Ohana means family, obviously, in the Aloha spirit, and so we treat all our employees and our vendors as an extension of that. We try to make a cultural feeling of the brand so they feel part of it and really care about it as much as we care about it.
Hitting our SLAs is like, a huge thing for us. I mean, that's the agreement, that's our commitment to our client. It's our responsibility. We can damage their brands if we're not hitting these agreements that we committed to. Other 3PLs that I've worked at, they have on-site representatives. They don't trust them. They have someone who works for that client. They're all day long dictating to you, what needs to be done, what the priorities are. So, coming to NRI is it's really refreshing to see that there's a huge partnership with the clients, and we understand their goals and what they need to be done, and we just run with it.
I'm extremely confident in the team. As we grow, the new challenges we throw at them, they've always been able to accommodate and they've always been able to achieve those goals.
We work hand in hand with them. They trust us with their business, and I think that we've been able to support their growth. It's been a partnership with NRI, with our client, with Six Rivers. It's something that I'm proud of, NRI should be proud of, and I think it's really cool to be a part of it.
Sorry, that wasn't intended to be so salesy, but we have a couple of videos. One might have had a little more of the bots in it, but anyways, you got to see some of them at work there in the background. And so that's the first facility that we did the rollout in, and then we now have what do we have? 2 others currently live, and then we're doing an install here in Henderson as well, and a new 300,000 square foot facility that we just opened up, just went live in. So yeah, it's there brings to light the scalability. So definitely for us, the ability to have a solution. I mean, years ago we were, you'd look at some heavy built-in solutions like, tilt tray sorters, things like that, and all that, and the heavy capital that goes along with it. And I just think now, we're in, with 6RS and the bots. I mean, it's just such a lower barrier to entry. Definitely a no-brainer for us. So it's starting to become standard as we open new facilities that we're going to have, autonomous robots in them.
6RS has a couple of business models, commercial models that we go to market with, and NRI actually has a rental model, but we also do capital as well. And I think it's super interesting that given the business they're in as a 3PL, being in a rental model because of how they operate with their clients and the terms of your contracts. And it provides some incredible flexibility. And I work with one of their operations leads, which is AC, Andres Castilla, and he's constantly calling me and saying, hey, I'm going to need to move some of my fleet here or there based upon where the volumes are. And I think it goes to your point, Eileen, about scalability, is you need to have systems that can move with you. The big thing about today's world is we do not know where the business may come from tomorrow. And how are we going to respond to that if we put in rigid systems that we always operated with in the past? And I think that's one of the things when you take conveyors out, right, or whatever, that you guys probably have to dealt with in the past, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a huge point. I mean, as a 3PL too, I mean, we strive for long-term relationships with our clients, and we hope that, they're around for decades with us. But the reality is, even if they are, you're also adding new ones. And so, and no 2 clients are created totally identical. So, anything that's really bolted to the ground that you've over-engineered for a specific set of business, if that set of business changes tomorrow, now suddenly you might have some obsolete, infrastructure. And so, 6RS allows us to bring on new clients. They, the bots, very adaptable to, different configurations. As you drew out on one of your slides there, we have them configured, I think, 3 levels, and we're picking into shippable box. So the technology also then on the containerization and what have you, that's pre-dictating for us the size of the tote that's going on to the bot is huge. So we've removed other steps throughout the whole process because of that, and we can replicate it, for a new client tomorrow.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We can move on, I guess. So
let's do that because none of this works without IT people.
Yep. So before we go, does anybody have any questions for Ryan about NRI? And then I have a question for everybody. How many IT folks? Is everybody operations or any IT? Is anyone IT in the audience? How many people deal with IT?
Yeah. Everybody.
Okay. All right. So, and I will take that. Yep. Thank you, sir. So this is always the big question, right? Everybody comes up here and we've been talking about how put automation in. There's automation in here. How do you do new things within your business to grow your business, to do things? Everybody wants to be flexible. Everybody wants to be scalable. But realistically, when you go back, no matter what you put in, if your IT group and your IT network is neither of those, you're stuck. Right? So what happened from SVT Robotics was it was founded back in 2018 by a group of industry experts with hands-on system integration and automation expertise. What they found was they were working for very large integrators doing a lot of subsystems, and they figured out that integration was terrible. Integration was absolutely terrible because you got 2 subsystems or 2 groups together. If you were just doing point to point and everybody sat in a room and they tried to sit there with spreadsheets and one person would point at the next person and say, you make your changes, I'm not changing my end, and it went back and forth for months and months. Nobody could figure out how to actually make anything talk to each other. And then if they did, if somebody changed something on the other side and didn't notify the other person, everything broke. Then if you got into the mix that suddenly I wanted to add a third partner in, things just got overly complicated and forget what was going on, right? So they made it a mission to go out to the world and say, how can we make integration for supply chain and automation accessible to all? So we're called SVT Robotics. We don't actually sell any robots. What I do is I basically simplify, I provide velocity and transparency into the integration of robotics, which we also consider automation. We provide pre-built and proven integrations that reduce custom development, which is what is the most costly part, providing a standard way for not only the OEMs, but also businesses to have APIs that communicate without requiring major changes and taking the technical debt off of those other subsystems. So you can look over on the slide right there. Those are already either partners that we are working with, that we have pre-built connectors to their APIs, or clients that we're already working with, such as NRI. So what we do with those connectors is system visibility. That's the other piece, right? So if you think about this, there was a great analogy I heard somebody give the other day. There was an IT guy that got enlisted into the Army, and he went out to the gun range to learn how to shoot a gun. And he sat down and he went to shoot down range at the target, and he fired, and the guy came back on the walkie-talkie and said, miss. The guy didn't know what he was doing. So he looked at the gun, looked at it all over, sat back down, fired downrange. Somebody came back over the walkie-talkie and said, miss. The guy looked at the gun again, put his finger in the end of the gun and pulled the trigger. Blew off his finger. Grabbed the walkie-talkie, called the other guy, said, my end is working just fine. It's your end that's the problem, right? That's the way integration works right now. So nobody has any clue what's happening in the middle. Somebody says, my end is fine. What's going on at your end? So what SVT also does is not only do we provide those pre-built connectors into the different automation and the different WMs, but we actually add visibility and alerting to things happening within the integration. So now you no longer have 5-hour calls to figure out what the problem is. I can see the code in a visual representation as it goes through my layer, and I can actually provide alerts when things are happening. So again, here's how we do that. That's through what we call the SoftBot Integrate package and SoftBot Monitor. And these are the tools that we utilize to give you all of those components that we talked about. The integrate piece is literally just what it says it is. It is just those pre-built connectors. And when I say pre-built, they don't necessarily have to be pre-built. In Ryan's discussion, he talked about they had a homegrown WM solution. We actually built their connector, connected them to 6 Rivers for the first time, and that project took about 12 weeks. So that was connecting to a homegrown WM, making sure all the APIs were working, testing, integration testing, and go live within 12 weeks. Their next site, we will actually deploy in 2 weeks. So that is taking a direct connection to the WM that we've already built, adding a new 6RS connector in, and then simply changing some configurations, URLs, some logins, some other things, but it's all drag and drop. And that's immediately connected, as well as all of the SoftBot monitoring oversees all of that, and we aggregate all of the data from those systems through execution logs that are available to NRI to see. So this again goes back to why has it so been difficult to automate in the past, right? This is your typical kind of diagram of the way things work, right? Multiple pieces of automation, lines of code that were inflexible, hard-coded, written within the platform. And each tech spoke its own language. So if you're not an IT person and somebody tells you they have APIs, you're like, oh, that's awesome. I'll go to IT and you have APIs, so we can talk to you because we have APIs as well. Well, it doesn't work like that. That's like saying I can talk and you can talk, but you speak French and I speak English, right? Nothing's the same. So again, just because you have APIs doesn't mean you can be integrated together. They still have differences that have to be worked out, and that's where SVT can come in. So what exactly is a softbot? So we take that connection to any WM, any WES, any ERP that's doing that, that supply chain, and we normalize that data into my layer. So I don't put the technical debt on you or your IT team, which we talked about with NRI. That was a basic positive conversation with NRI, which was one of the big ones. They were lacking the IT resources to spend months and months and months going through an integration process. So we sat down with them and said, we already have a connector with 6 Rivers. We know what we need from you. We're going to tell you exactly what we need. I don't need you guys to sit in a 9-month integration deal with 6RS. Let us just work with you to build the connector. We'll normalize it, and then we already have that data passing to 6RS to make sure that all of your orders are flowing. So what that does is that provides proven and reusable, it's self-documenting, and it's easy to support. And again, with all of this, I could go into a live demo. We do live demos all the time within our lab in Virginia, and these guys have seen it, and we've showcased it before, but I can flip between WMSs. So if you're in one of those positions where you're like, hey, I'm not sure that I'm going to stay on this WMS for another year and a half, so I don't want to put automation in right now, the answer is go ahead and do it, because in a year and a half, I just remove the WM connector and replace it with the new one. I don't change the automation connector on the other side. So again, we've done that with multiple clients already. It just reduces the risk, which we've heard a lot of from clients, is that it's risky to put automation in because I'm limited to it. But at the same time, I reduce that risk. I help you get flexible as well as scalable to the aspect of I can put 6 Rivers in, and then I can augment 6 Rivers with, I heard, pack size and pick to light and other things where I can add those in. And I even have the ability within my platform to do that seasonally. So let's say during off season, I can run 6 Rivers for all of my picking. And then during peak season, I want my fastest SKUs, instead of being picked through the automation, move all of those over to a pick to light wall. I have the capability within my platform to actually perform that possibility. The other great point here is, and this goes back to NRI, we're looking at 17 sites with them. We've done 4 sites within the first 12 months. And again, site 2 is going to take us 2 weeks. But the idea is once you're on the platform, I can simply drag and drop one of my other pre-built connectors onto the platform and suddenly have you either doing a proof of concept or testing, or going ahead and going live with another piece of automation within your supply chain that you didn't think you were going to be able to do because IT didn't have time. Right?
And it's not even just time, it's just resources.
It's
as well.
resources. Yeah.
There's a lot of organizations that they've got the IT resources, they just don't have bandwidth.
Right.
They've got too many other projects in the way. And so it's just the time to sit down and do this mapping or definition. And then the other thing that you didn't hit on to me, Brian, is I upgrade. I provide 2 new releases every year,
Correct.
right? And this protects the investment of keeping that adapter and that mapping moving as we provide more features and functions. So that's the other benefit of kind of working with SVT Robotics and them staying up to date with us being in their lab on what's coming next.
It goes back to that flexible and scalable at the same time, right? So as Ocado and 6RS add feature sets to their product, you haven't hard-coded to what they built 2 years ago. With SVT, what I'm doing in the background is I'm rebuilding that connector for Ocado and 6 Rivers, so that when you come back to me and go, we want those feature sets that are available now in the new product, I swap connectors for you. And suddenly now you can take advantage of all of that new possibility. And that goes with all automations, right? So typically automation providers, when you think about even some of the Ocado product or the auto store that's in there, right? Typically people think I put it in that building and I set it down and I forget it. But what you don't think about is the software in the background that has the algorithms running, that has the other APIs that you can take advantage of things. If you can take those updates and not leave it there, you're actually getting better performance out of that automation than just leaving it alone. And then again, so unlike custom code, what the SoftBot platform really is it minimizes project risk. In the end, our idea is to take what used to be a 12 to 16 month project to put in automation and reduce it to 12 weeks. That's our goal. Easily support and maintain. So our certified SoftBots are validated for performance, functionality, and security. All of our stuff is self-documenting. So what does that mean? If I had an actual visual up here, and Sean or Ryan's probably seen it, but our stuff looks like a workflow chart. We don't write lines of code. we actually drag and drop workflow so that every time code fires through one of our integration connectors, it actually follows through that line, and you can see them light up green as all the data passes through. And we store that in our execution log, so everything becomes a visual representation. So I don't need a developer to go sit down and figure things out. I can have an engineer that understands the industrial process and my workflow actually follow the data now as it flows through the integration layer. And again, the system visibility is a huge one, and that's what I was just describing there. But that goes back to previously everything was a black box in integration, and we don't believe that's the way things should be. So we provide that single pane of glass over top of the integration layer for everybody to see. And I think, going back to the NRI and the Six Rivers, NRI, I think we plan on rolling out multiple Six Rivers sites. The time went from 12 weeks down to almost 2 weeks to deploy the next site. I think timing is more on their project team getting things done than it is for me to deploy the integration and test it. Because again, I'm testing and I can see it all, and everything's pre-done and we can make those changes. As well as adding in future capabilities. I mean, we're already having discussions with them about bringing in sorters, bringing in vertical lifts or VLMs, and other automation, and then orchestrating that into the entire process with NRI. So that's SVT. Any questions from you guys? Yes?
Let him get you the mic.
Wait for the microphone, yeah.
Hey, Richard from Schneider Electric. With the ERP connectivity, I guess two things. We run Manhattan and Oracle WM.
Yeah.
And in some of our DCs, we're running both of them. And so we lose a lot of synergies having two different setups. So are you able to handle the two WM feeds through that connectivity?
So absolutely. So I'll give you a great example here with NRI, and I should have brought this up. NRI has one WM instance across 17 sites. So I am actually managing one platform instance connected to that WM, and then connecting to multiple sites, multiple automation pieces across those sites, simply by routing and orchestrating. In the reverse, I also have another 3PL client that has multiple WMs in the same building with a single piece of automation that I can pull orders from and then integrate down to those single pieces of automation. Because in Six Rivers case, they don't care where the data comes from or which WM it comes from. They just need to know what and where to go pick. And so I'm then filtering it down. So in your case, it would be the same idea. I could have a Manhattan, I don't know whether it's Open Systems or WMI or MAWM, right? And then an Oracle WM connector, right? So I could bring the data down from the two, and I could do it in completely separate types of APIs. So Manhattan could be a standard REST JSON, and the Oracle we could do through TCP IP, right? Whatever the protocol is for Oracle, it doesn't matter to me. It could even be flat file. I convert it and normalize all of that data in the middle, and whether it's going to PIX or whether it's going to a transport, I play with all of that in the middle and then connect the other connectors for whatever automation you want.
Okay, and the same with the upgrades. So we're going to be moving to Manhattan Active, and the same as they change functionality. Are you keeping correct with that?
Yes.
So again, if I don't have it, I can build it. In the case of Manhattan, right, their Manhattan Active has like 40,000 APIs, right? So you just have to build the connectors based on the APIs that are required, but we will eventually go out and have a Manhattan Active connector because we have other clients asking for it. So we will have that connector to bump into that environment as well, correct?
And I think what's super important about your question is you're running these two instances active right now. That same thing happens as companies, what you just spoke about, are trying to move off an existing system to another system, and they don't have that protection, right? I have a 3PL client outside of NRI, had the same thing going on. They were moving between two Manhattan instances and they wanted to basically push off getting the benefit they were going to get from automation. They built their own middleware. This was outside of SVT, and we're now introducing SVT because they're another 3PL that has multiple WMSs in play. And it's very common to have that in the 3PL world. NRI is kind of unique because they run everything, all their clients, they push to their own system called Aspire. But that's the protection that SVT provides, is having that middleware layer and that, if you will, protection, and you can move between those two instances. You could have the same inventory there, different inventory. It's a matter of how you want to manage that. And like he said, from a 6RS perspective, I don't care. I just need to know where that outbound data is going. Number one, where am I getting that data from? And then where do you want me to send it to?
Okay, and just I guess this is the last piece is with everything moving to the cloud and our Manhattan data centers are in Europe. I think that's been another issue, and I saw pack size there made a big challenge integrating pack size in Manhattan, and part of that was the latency or the connectivity of moving to or cloud based. And I guess I'm just curious, maybe from all your experiences, if that has been an issue or if you're normally having to have local servers.
I'll answer that. So it depends upon the project. So we've had lots of discussions, right? Deployed pack size. Again, pack size can be deployed on-prem, and they also have their new cloud version.
Yeah.
So Manhattan being in the cloud and their data centers over in Europe, right? So it really depends upon what you're doing with pack size and the latency required to get there, and then your latency with your location. We can handle it in one of two ways. I can be on-prem, where I actually, communicate with the WM, and then I'm communicating with pack size locally. Or we even deal with something that's called a Redis cache type server, where that caches data in between, right, in order to minimize that latency at the site. But again, we've dealt with that in multiple different ways, and it goes back to a quick understanding of what your workflow is with the project. Typically with pack size, not so much. It's been more of dealing with like an OPEX shore sort, which is a sorting machine, which requires like less than 50 millisecond total response time back and forth. Then that's an issue. But typically with pack size, again, it depends upon what you're doing with pack size. So and which pack size product you're dealing with at that point. But yeah, we can handle it. We've dealt with that before.
Good questions. It can also be your backbone though too, just to throw that out there. It may not have anything to do with either of those systems, so let's keep that in mind as well, because we've dealt through those issues as well. So awesome. We intended to, guys, again, just to show you where we're unlocking value in operations by working together with partners or single-handedly, because they've got many other clients outside of us, and same here, us with them. But when we've come together, there's just some really great benefits that we've been able to provide in RI. They're a great partner of ours, but they also work with other automation vendors as well, guys. And so I just want to be really clear. It starts with what problem you're trying to solve, okay? And then apply technology to it, okay? The answer is, what's the objective and what are you trying to achieve that then provides that outcome, okay? Because like I said, he's working with other vendors as well. And it just needs to come back to, again, those first few questions we asked. What are the challenges you're facing? Why haven't you already gone to automation? What are holding you back? Those answers will drive that, what you're trying to achieve. Okay. So thank you for letting us spend some time with you and sharing that story. And if you've got further questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Thanks.